much less be able to put it in its proper relative position unless Yahweh reveals it. There could be no doctrine more strongly emphasized, no more often repeated, than that he is the God of Israel, and that in Israel alone he will be glorified, making mention of these facts over 2,400 times. This, you may conclude, should be very easy to understand, and yet the whole world has tripped over this most important truth. And not only tripped, but it abandoned this most basic truth after once understanding it. Getting back to the prophecy, the reed now represents perfect imperfection, or complete imperfection, or total imperfection. Now the messenger takes the reed and begins by measuring the thickness of the wall, and it measures 1 reed, and its height was also 1 reed. We now begin to realize how useful this reed was, for it was made to order, being exactly the size for the first 2 measurements, and there was nothing to be added or subtracted. Being as the reed represents total imperfection, does this mean then that the wall itself needed correcting, that some apprentice mason had botched up the job? Yahweh does not find fault with the builder, for if he did, he would inform us as to who the builder was. Nor does Yahweh enter into judgment against a wall or any other inanimate object, although the blind religionists claim that he is going to take his revenge out on the literal earth. Walls are built to separate different tracts of land, to enclose a certain area. In many instances, they serve the same purpose that is served by a fence today, such as the fencing in of cattle, so that they will not stray into the neighbor's territory, or the fencing in of a schoolyard, so that the children will be safely contained within. In the first case, we have a cattle fence, and the other a schoolyard fence. This wall that surrounded the temple and the temple area had to do with containing all those who are and shall be influenced by the temple. And who are these? They are none other than Israel. Therefore, we are not looking at a totally imperfect wall per se, but a wall built to contain imperfection, or a wall enclosing a people that is completely or totally imperfect. Stand before a full-length mirror, look intently. Yes, Yahweh is referring to you, to each and every one of Israel. This means that there is not one fiber of Israel that is perfect, except perhaps the heart condition. And this is even open for questioning when beholding the activities of some of Israel. Satan works on all of these imperfections, especially so if a member does not possess a full knowledge, or if he or she has decided to follow their own priorities on certain issues. The time has now arrived to clearly spell out the extent of authority over his earthly organization that Yahweh has given to Jeremiah. And I will make this clear to all true Israel by revealing to you what Yahweh has revealed to me concerning this in Ezekiel's vision. The only portion of this vision that will be of benefit to all of Israel at this time is the understanding of the significance of the wall and of the entrance gate. Quote, verse 6, Then came he unto the gate which looketh toward the east, and went up the stairs thereof, and measured the threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad, and the other threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad. Unquote. Going up the steps, which in the northern and southern gateways are described as numbering 7, means that the individual has chosen to do the complete and divine will of Yahweh. He then crosses the first threshold, which is 1 reed broad. This means that the gateway, or the passageway, which symbolize the manner of judgment that will be employed to allow free access to true Israel and prevent foreigners or enemies of Israel to enter, will be totally imperfect. For no man knows the true heart of another, but we can only judge on the evidence that we gain by outward observation. He then crosses another threshold, which is likewise 1 reed broad. The crossing of 2 thresholds means that he has now crossed a room or entranceway, which has an outside and an inside doorway. The width of this entranceway is described as 10 cubits. But the depth of the room, or the distance he crosses, is purposely left out, and is to be filled in by the one who first understands the vision. This will be done later. The 10 cubits, which is the width of the entranceway, means that the judgment which follows, which is the reason for entering the gateway in the first place, will be as complete and just and merciful as is humanly possible to execute. And anyone who is incapable of exercising this justice and mercy to the fullest extent, which in turn would give every righteous-hearted person a full opportunity to receive Yahweh's blessing, would certainly not be chosen by Yahweh to fill this most important office. After crossing the entranceway, the one who is being examined enters a large passageway with 3 little guard rooms on either side. In the time of typical Israel, these guard rooms were a reality, and they were filled with armed guards who were prepared to slay any of the enemy who had forced their way through the entrance room in order to pass through the gateway and enter the city in order to subdue it. Between these little chambers there was a dividing space of 5 cubits. This means that anyone going through this passageway would first encounter a guard room on either side of him, which measured 1 reed long and 1 reed wide. Next was a dividing space of 5 cubits on either side to divide one set of guard rooms from the next ones, further down the passageway. Then upon passing these next 2 guard rooms that flanked him on either side, he passed another separating space of 5 cubits on either side, which made the separation between the third and last set of guard rooms. The description of these guard rooms and the spaces between them is given in both verses 7 and 10. For 7 alone does not give the full description, so I will have to read a portion of each. Quote verse 7. And every little chamber was 1 reed long and 1 reed broad, and between the little chambers were 5 cubits. Now, quoting a portion of verse 10. And the little chambers of the gate eastward were 3 on this side and 3 on that side. They were 3 of 1 measure. And the posts had 1 measure on this side and on that side. The posts mentioned here are the spaces between them. They were also of the same measure, which in verse 7 was described as being 5 cubits. Unquote. The passing of these 3 guard rooms means that there will be 3 major judgments which a potential Israelite must pass in order to gain access to the community of Israel. The first of these is knowledge. He must understand that this entire world is of the devil and will be completely destroyed soon, and that Yahweh's kingdom will then take over the entire earth, wherein a system of true justice which will employ no money as a medium of trade, and that this will prevail throughout the earth. The second is faith, faith in the knowledge. This faith is demonstrated by his standing firm in his belief and not being swayed by the threats or tempting offers made by the demonized host. He must also communicate this faith to others. The third is endurance. This last is the most difficult of all to judge, for an individual can remain faithful up to a specified length of time and be accepted and later begin to flounder, as has been the case with many in Israel. Israel will only be able to pass judgment when the record reveals how many times and under what varying circumstances he has remained faithful. Many of those who gain entrance into Israel will leave when the abomination of desolation covers the whole earth, if they do not leave sooner. Therefore, after Israel has done its best to judge righteously, it will be Yahweh who will take over the final judgment of all, and it will be he who endures until the end that will be saved. Now to go back to the latter portion of verse 7. And the threshold of the gate by the porch of the gate within was 1 reed. This indicates that after passing the 3 guard rooms, he comes upon another room which was next to the porch. And this naturally had an entranceway. And this first entranceway, again, measured 1 reed. Now we come across a problem. There has been something left out. And we'll go on and try to correct this. Verse 8 has this to say, he measured also the porch of the gate within, 1 reed. Now, we found that the threshold of this inner room was 1 reed. Now it mentions that the porch of the gate within was 1 reed. Some words here have been left out, because if we read verse 9, this becomes increasingly evident. Then measured he the porch of the gate 8 cubits. Now he just said that he measured also the porch of the gate within 1 reed. Now he says, which is 6 cubits. Now he says that when he measures the porch of the gate, it is 8 cubits. So what has happened here, that the copyist has left out some words, and he failed to mention the fact that there were 2 thresholds in this inner room. And this is what it actually should have said. He measured also the other threshold by the porch of the gate within, 1 reed. Now we can continue with verse 9, which states, then measured he the porch of the gate 8 cubits. Now this is the measurement of the porch itself, the length of the porch from front to back, and the post thereof 2 cubits. Now these are the jambs, indicating the thickness of the wall of the porch. And the porch of the gate was inward. So all these measurements were inward, or inside towards the inside of the wall itself, and not the exterior measurements of the front. Therefore, there were 4 thresholds in all. Now we'll go on to verse 11. And he measured the breadth of the entry of the gate, 10 cubits. Now this is the very entranceway which has already been measured, and it is 10 cubits wide, or from side to side. Now the Authorized Version continues and says, and the length of the gate, 13 cubits. Now this makes no sense at all. The length of the gate was actually 50 cubits. So we'll go to the Revised Standard Version and find that it's not the length but the width. Then he measured the breadth of the opening of the gateway, 10 cubits, and the breadth of the gateway, 13 cubits. This means that the initial entranceway was 10 cubits wide, but then when you pass this room, the width of the entire passageway of judgment was 13 cubits. Now, when we get to the point where we measure the overall width of the building, this will be proven to be correct. Therefore, on either side of this passageway of 13 cubits were these 3 chambers on either side, making 6 chambers in all, and each of these chambers was 6 by 6, or 1 reed wide and 1 reed long. Now between these chambers was a space of 5 cubits. Now being these chambers were the judgments of Israel, the separating of these judgments by the 5 cubits indicates the arrangement of the judgment that would be made, and it is made by the prophet whose number is 5, namely Jeremiah. Now I have told Israel about this. I have many instances that have proven to me conclusively that when Yahweh refers to Jeremiah, he refers to him as the number 5. When he refers to his position, it is the number 8. This is why when I was in jail, I got out on the 5th month and the 8th day. I knew ahead of time that something good would happen on the 5th month and the 8th day, and that probably I would be released. And such was the case. Now to continue with verse 12. The space also before the little chambers was 1 cubit on this side, and the space was 1 cubit on that side. This means that there was a little wall, a cubit high and a cubit wide, in front of these little chambers for the purpose of measuring the extent of the room, and also as a barrier to separate the hall from the judgment chamber itself. And it goes on to say, and the little chambers were 6 cubits on this side and 6 cubits on that side, again giving the measurements. Now the reason that the guard chambers were on both sides of this passageway is to specify or to make clear that the judgment was complete and thorough, was made as clear as possible. In other words, the one passing through was viewed on both sides, so that there was nothing that could be hidden. If he was seen on one side, the other side might not be seen. And this is meant to be to show that everything was out in the open, and man would see and understand as much as was possible, which would not be the case if he only viewed one side. Now, verse 13 continues, he measured then the gate from the roof of one little chamber to the roof of another. The breadth was 5 and 20 cubits, door against door. All right, now this is bringing out that these little chambers had a roof over them, and there was a door that went to the outside. So where this roof ended and the doorway began was where the measurement was taken from. This means this was all inside. And where the door started was the beginning of the wall. So the thickness of the wall was actually not measured. So from the inside wall, you might say, of one side to the inside wall on the other side was 25 cubits. Now we will check the measurements of the measurement of the passageway, which should total to 13. So we find that if we measured from the inside wall, and we measure one guard room, and it's 6 cubits, and we measure the other guard room, and that's 6 cubits, that's a total of 12. Now 12 from 25 leaves a passageway of 13 cubits. So we see that the scripture is correct in this instance. We now go to verse 14. This verse has certainly been misplaced. We find that it says, he made also posts of 60 cubits, even unto the post of the court, round about the gate. This makes absolutely no sense in this position here, because the angel, or the man in the color of bronze, was not making anything. He was simply measuring what existed, what was already there. He was not putting up the building. Now, the Catholic version has this to say: he measured the vestibule, which was 25 cubits. Now this would be the porch. Now we already have one measurement of the porch. The from front to back was 8 cubits, and the width was 25 cubits according to this version. Now this would mean that the porch in the back, or the inside, which was inside the gateway itself, or inside the wall, we might say, was 25 cubits and as wide as the rest of the building on the inside. Now, verse 15 has this to say in the authorized version concerning the length of the entire gateway. And from the face of the gate of the entrance unto the face of the porch of the inner gate were 50 cubits. Now this would seem to indicate that the overall measurement of the gate from outside to outside, or from outside to the farthest part inside, was 50 cubits. However, if this were the case, then Jeremiah's measurements would be 2 cubits off, because I get 52 from outside, 52 cubits. However, the Smith's version gives us a clue. Whether he understands it the same way as I do is not certain. It has this to say: thus from the outside front of the gate, that's the front, to the inside front of the vestibule were 50 cubits. Now, this could possibly mean that it is from the outside of the front to the outside of the portion which was within the wall. If this is the case, it is wrong. But if he means it to mean, if he wants it to mean that it is from the outside of the front to the inside portion of the building on the back end, then he's correct. Now, this is what the Hebrew has to say. And from the face of the gate, the entrance, or at the point of entry, to the face of the porch of the gate, the inner face, panim, which means in the Hebrew interior, as the inner parts of a building, as an adjective or as an adverb, ponima, as a word of action. This signifies the inner wall of a house, room, that is opposite to or in front of the door, and of those entering, according to one lexicon. According to another lexicon, towards the inside, within, literally faceward, from point of view of one entering by opposite door of a building. In other words, if he came in from the front door, the back wall facing him inside the building would be the front, as though coming in from the outside door, the front door. According to Strong's Concordance, which is 6442, was taken from 6440, which is interior. It has this to say: the face as the part that turns. And where does it turn? In this case, from the outside to the inside. It certainly would not be necessary to use this complicated term if the building were measured from outside to outside. Using a man as an illustration, if he were able to turn his head 180 degrees, the face that you had been looking at is now turned, and what had been the direction of the face is now the back of the head, and what had been the back of the head is now the face. Being as the porch, which is inside the gate, measures 8 cubits in length, this 8 signifies that the one who has passed the judgment has passed the judgment as prescribed by the 8th prophet. All right, now he is now ready to enter the walls of the community of Israel and be a member of Israel, even though all of the members of Israel are completely imperfect. Now, being as this measurement shows that he has lived up to the judgment prescribed by Jeremiah, we now go to the front entranceway, which had no measurement whatsoever as far as the length of it or the distance from front to back of the entrance room. This must also be 8, because the whole judgment is arranged by Jeremiah, the 8th prophet. Now, Because the jambs of the porch are 2 cubits, then we must conclude that the walls are 2 cubits and that all of the jambs are of similar size, and that there is harmony throughout the building. We therefore have 4 jambs in all. From the first threshold, the second threshold, and then the 2 inner ones that open the way to the porch. So we have 4. Now, in totaling this, we will measure all of these and see what figure we arrive at. So we have 2 cubits for the first jamb, then we have 8 for the distance of the room, which is 10. Then we have 2 more cubits for the inside jamb, for this inside threshold, and we now have 12. Then there are 3 guard rooms, which are 6, or 1 reed or 6 cubits each, and this is 18. 18 and 12 is 30. Now the 2 separations are 5 cubits each, which makes it 40. Then we have 2 cubits for the inside threshold, which is 42, and 8 for the distance of the porch, which is 50, which brings us to the inside wall. So you see the measurement is correct. Now, another thing that I would like to bring out is that the entire length of the judgment from the beginning of the guard room, the first guard room, to the end of the last guard room is a total of 28 cubits. There is 3 sixes is 18, and the 2 spacers are 5 and 5, which is 10. This would indicate that the judgment, as imperfect as it is, employs fully and to perfection all of the attributes of Yahweh. How is this done, you might say? Well, in being imperfect, what we do is that this judgment arranged by Jeremiah does not prevent any righteous one from coming in, but it does not prevent many unrighteous from entering. These are the ones who appear to be godly. These are the ones that we would say that if they did not have an opportunity, we think that they have been misjudged. In other words, if Yahweh were passing this judgment, all the wicked would not even get through the first gate. They would get up the steps possibly, but they would not be able to make the first entranceway. And there might be doubt in Israel as to the heart condition of many of these. With the imperfect judgment and not being all wise, Jeremiah and Israel will allow some of these to slip in. And when they do come in and receive the blessings of Israel, and then they leave, we see that there is certainly no reason to hold on to them. They have proven to be wicked themselves, and everyone in Israel is satisfied, and the righteous do remain, and the wicked are eliminated, but only this time the wicked are proven to be wicked, whereas if Yahweh passed judgment, there would be no proof. So, with the imperfect judgment of Jeremiah and Israel, the attributes of Yahweh are perfectly satisfied, and they are also satisfying to the members of Israel, because now we know that the ones who Yahweh would have left out have proven to be unworthy of everlasting life. So this is a marvelous and a loving situation which Yahweh permits